Turn that down a little bit. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Today's section is using the medicine wheel to promote wellness for classrooms and school culture. And it is brought to you by the ARPDC, Alberta Regional Professional Development Consortia, and it is funded by Learn Alberta. Welcome and thank you for attending. So I'll do land acknowledgement first. So Tanse, I live on Treaty 7 land, which is the ancestral home of the Blackfoot people. There are also Dene people here in Sutina and Métis Nation. And I have to change it, sorry, to Region 5. I forgot to change it on this one. As our last elections here in Alberta for the Métis Nation, they just changed it, so I'll fix that later. All have contributed to the shaping of Alberta and Canada. And I thank particularly the Blackfoot people for allowing me to live here. My ancestral home is in Manitoba, and that is Treaty 1 land. And we shared that with our Cree cousins, whom I do have a lot of actually, and the Ojibwe people as well that are there. So if you would like, you can put in the chat which treaty land you're on or close to, or if there's a settlement you're close to, or the land of the people that traditionally lived there that were displaced. So who am I? I always say bear with me so that if you have attended my sessions before, because I know there's a number of you that come to most of them, you can just tune this out for a couple minutes, but for those who haven't before, just to give you my background so you understand exactly who I am and why I do this work. My name is Tammy Johnson, and I'm a designer of professional learning, and that's what ARPDC calls us. It's a pretty relevant term because aside from these online sessions that we do now, which was really pushed along by COVID, so it just really made PD accessible for educators across the province. So not having to necessarily obviously attend in person has made a lot of PD a lot easier for you guys to get to, fortunately. A good side effect of all that. But we also do face-to-face workshops and presentations, as well as work on curricular areas. And right now, the big focus, of course, is in the area of new curriculum, as that's the focus of the province at this moment. I am Red River Métis from what is historically known as the Red River Settlement. For those of you who are Indigenous at all, particularly Métis, for us here, we all really, the first two questions anybody asks you is, your name, so who are your people, and then where are you from, so where's your land. So my people are from Selkirk, Manitoba, which is just north of Winnipeg. I went to school in Winnipeg. Our family names are, my mom's a Mowat, McDonald's on the other side, Mackay's and Beaudry as well. Beaudrys are a Alberta Voyageur Métis family, and Mackay's, of course, they're across the prairies as well. That's a picture of my great-grandpa there, James Mowat. If you've been to Fort Saskatchewan or worked there, there's James Mowat Elementary School, which is named after him, and Mowat Park, which is named after my family, and then James Mowat Trail, which is spelled with 2 T's. Again, it doesn't really matter because it was MOAD when they came to Canada. The English at the Hudson Bay Company changed it because of the Scottish accent. A D sounds like a T. And yeah, that picture beside him to the right is a picture of his 4 surviving children. My grandpa's the middle boy, Rosser, and his brothers Oliver and Stanley, and then my great aunt Tassie. And I believe that picture, I always guesstimate probably around 1916, I'm guessing, because it looks like my grandpa's about 6 years old there. And then the picture of my great grandpa, I believe, would be at the end of the 1800s, somewhere in there. And so I love having those pictures. I think that's really cool. I did start as a teacher in Winnipeg in the same school division that I graduated from, Seven Oaks School Division in the core area of Winnipeg. And started working particularly then in special education with Indigenous students. The two often do go hand in hand because there's many gaps in learning, unfortunately, or learning disabilities due to trauma and things like that. But the situation economically was quite, well, I'd say, I don't know, I think it's pretty bad right now for a lot of people, particularly that don't have money, or steady jobs or that sort of thing. I see a lot of things, and I think since COVID, it's gotten worse. I live in a neighborhood that I'm pretty insulated where I am, particularly, but if I go outside, just outside of here, I'm in what's called the Greater Forest Lawn area in Calgary, and just outside my neighborhood, it can be pretty bad. I go out with AIM, the American Indian Movement, to do outreach in the neighborhood, and I also help with a shower program Wednesday mornings at place called Rise here in Calgary and pick up the bread donation for them, because there's just a lot of stuff going on. And it was very similar in the late 80s when I started teaching as well. So a lot of the kids came into the school, had come right off the reservation at that time. And of course, very fearful. It was a very different culture. The language, nobody spoke their language. And so they would connect me a lot of the time with these students because of being Métis and having similar kinds of backgrounds as them in terms of things that they had experienced growing up and that sort of thing. So just kind of my start to working with, other Indigenous kids at that time. But a couple of years ago, I did a project with Gitaskinow Tribal Council and Ignite eLearning online school to take the outreach program from KTCA and their grade 7 to 9 program, worked with in concert with their specialists that were really awesome. But I basically decolonized the curriculum for them, still based on Alberta's program of studies, but looked at it through the seasons. So fall, winter, spring, and then infused land-based learning, Indigenous ways of knowing and being for their particular cultures, because there's 5 different groups there. They're nations that are banded together. And then infused it with Cree as well, which I'm now myself learning. My grandpa spoke Cree, not Michif, because most British background Métis people did in fact learn Cree generally, and spoke French, not Michif usually, to speak with any of the French-speaking people that are around them. So I'm learning that now, which is exciting. And the elders took the work that I did and worked with the specialist and were very pleased with what I did. And it was suggested that I continue this work and particularly really have a heart to help non-Indigenous teachers. Not that I'm not helping Indigenous teachers as well, but really just to help you get past the concerns, about disrespecting any of the cultures or appropriation and that sort of thing. So I hope to guide people in that direction. And I don't have all the answers, and I would never claim to. I am in the process of learning things as well. I do practice Cree spirituality as well. So most of the teachings that I understand are Cree. But as we go through things, and if you've attended any of my sessions, you know that I always talk about going to the local people that are closest to you anyway. So wherever you happen to be situated in the province, wherever your school happens to be situated, I think that those are the people that you should look toward for specific teachings. And we'll talk about that, particularly when we're talking about the medicine wheel. I do want to point out ARBDC resources. There are some amazing things that are already here for you guys as educators that have been created and vetted by Alberta educators. And probably, like I said, I always say is the main one you probably know is Empowering the Spirit. I see it constantly. I'm always proud and amazed when I see it across post-secondary schools across the country, actually, not just here in Alberta or the prairies. I see it referenced a lot, as well as just about any website I come across that has educational information on it often references this. So it's interesting. But yeah, it is a really great website. If you haven't utilized it yourself, then take a gander at it if you get a chance. Orange Shirt Day and Beyond, I always point out, is my favorite spot because it's got these teaching tools on it, and I'm not going to go through it because we just don't have time to do all that, but I encourage you to take a peek. There's some really great stuff on there, particularly about Orange Shirt Day, and just posters for sharing circles and things like that that are readily made, and they're for all the divisions as well, so that's really nice too. And I know I've been asked in other sessions about resources in français, but they are still being developed. Don't lose hope because they are being developed by, I know I worked with the French consortium that was working on the Orange Shirt Day as well. And I know that's definitely a goal of theirs, is to make sure that everything is available in French as well. So if you go to this particular site, so the ARPDC Professional Development Resources, you can search by focus as I did. So I just went down to First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and of course it propagates everything that's available for that particular topic. And you may notice like Our Way is a valid way. What else? Education is our buffalo, and then Weaving Ways are ones you probably recognize right off the bat. But you can also search by audience. So if you want to go, look at it differently, you can search by level for students, or you can search by the type of resource depending on what you're looking for. So yeah, I just like to point those out. So encourage you, since those things are already created and readily available for you. Take a look if it's a good place to start anyways, if you're looking for something. So just a reflection question. I know it's hard to get everybody involved when it's online because people don't want to talk. I get that. That's okay. But I'm just going to get everybody to think about this a little bit anyways as we get into the topic. What do you already know about the medicine wheel? So if you want to throw that in the chat, you can. Also notice that I did throw in a Red River cart with a Métis symbol in the middle just because I could. I found those online. I thought that was really cute. So yeah, that's my plug for my people. So got to do what I can. But yeah, if you want to just pop something in the in the chat, what do you know about the medicine wheel already, if anything, or if you've used it or anything like that? You posted some. Oh, okay. It's 4 directional. Kristen said, yeah, for sure. Okay, Max says very little. There's 4 components. So you guys are fast, but not really sure what they are. Okay. You think that there's 4 directions to represent? Yeah. Okay. Each quadrant represents a season connection. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Lots of great ideas there. Yeah. The medicine wheel itself can represent a lot of different things, right? So you're right. It isn't necessarily one thing. But I also want to point out this too, that this is a generic version. It's really important to understand that, right? There are specific teachings for the medicine wheel in different cultures, right? So predominantly the Cree and Ojibwe really focus on this. Like this is a big thing, right? People across Turtle Island, however, have really adopted the medicine wheel, and there's always some kind of form of these teachings anyway. So it really just encompasses this. Just to point out as well that the number 4 is extremely important across all Indigenous cultures across the world. So it's not just Indigenous peoples here on Turtle Island that use this. So that's also an important thing to understand. And there's a good reason for it. So when we look at that, as you guys said, like there's 4 seasons generally, not in every place on the planet, but generally there's 4 seasons, right? There's 4 directions, right? We know this. So there's north, east, south, west, right? We usually start in the east for ourselves. For Cree, start in the east. That's all I can tell you because that's the teachings I've been given. Other start in different directions, but then there's also the elements, right? So we have 4 elements that are basic. So fire, water, earth, and air. We also include now 4 different colors of basic colors of human beings, right? Which did not exist on this kind of idea before, because before Europeans arrived, Indigenous peoples here had no idea that there were people of other colors other than, different shades of brown at this point, right? So they've learned this now that people have come here to Turtle Island of different colors. So now they understand that. And so they've added that as well as a more recent teaching. We also have, astronomy, right? So we've got the sun, we've got the moon, we've got the earth, and we've got the stars. We also have the times of the day, right? So we have dawn, we have noon, we have dusk, and we have midnight. So we have those times. And then you look at growth, so we have the life cycle on there as well, right? The main one that you've probably seen, especially AHS in the province has used, and I've seen this, and I've been sitting in a, what do you call the walking clinics, when I've been sick or something like that a few years ago, I remember seeing one where it represents, your emotional space, your heart, your spiritual, your soul, your physical, your body, your intellect, and your mind. And that's the main one really that it was created for in that sense, because it's really talking about, for Indigenous peoples, the importance of balance, right? And so that's really what we're going to focus on here today when we talk about that. We're going to look at the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, and the intellectual in terms of helping our students, helping everybody in our school cultures, not just the kids, right? Everybody benefits from this. You'll also notice too, we have the different kinds. We have the mineral, plant, human, animal. So, different parts. We also have our 4 sacred medicines. So that's another important thing, right? So tobacco's in the east because it was received from the creator first. We have cedar, sage, and sweetgrass. I do other sessions on the medicine wheel, but this one we focus on wellness. So I won't get into too much of that other stuff. So I do have a generic kind of explanation of the medicine wheel. It does come from Bob Joseph. So Bob Joseph is, as you can see, Indigenous corporate training. He also wrote 21 things you should know about the medicine wheel. He's got some really great stuff on here. And so this is actually, I believe the one from Wyoming, the big one, I think. And this is Bob Joseph right here, this gentleman, and he's very knowledgeable. And it's a very short video. I'm going to show you. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of chatter noise behind him. I think he must have recorded it at a conference or something like that. So it does bug me a little bit, but try to just listen to what he says because he's got some really good information.
Hi, I want to start off this video about medicine wheels with a quote from J. Dumont's Culture, Behavior, and the Identity of the Native Person. The circle, being primary, influence how we as Aboriginal peoples view the world. In the process of how life evolves, how the natural world grows and works together, how all things are connected, and how all things move toward their destiny. Aboriginal people see and respond to the world in a circular fashion and are influenced by the examples of circles in creation in our environment. There isn't a simple answer to the question, as medicine wheels, sometimes called hoops, come in more than one form, and their significance and use is culture specific. There is, however, one fundamental similarity besides the shape. Medicine wheels represent the alignment and continuous interaction of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual realities. The circle shape represents the interconnectivity of all aspects of one's being, including the connection with the natural world. Medicine wheels are frequently believed to be the circle of awareness of the individual self, the circle of knowledge that provides the power we each have over our own lives. Two images jump to mind when thinking about medicine wheels. One is the ancient stone version. According to the Royal Alberta Museum, a medicine wheel consists of at least two of the following three traits. One, a central stone cairn. Two, one or more concentric stone circles, and or three, two or more stone lines radiating outward from a central point. Using this definition, there are a total of 46 medicine wheels in Alberta. This constitutes about 66% of all medicine wheels known. Alberta, it seems, is the core area for medicine wheels. How long ago stone medicine wheels were first created is still up for discussion, but some have been dated to about 4000 BC, which is when the great Egyptian pyramids were built. There are suggestions that the bighorn medicine wheel, the largest and oldest, could be millions of years old. The original name for medicine wheels was sacred circles. The term medicine wheel was coined by non-Native Americans in response to the bighorn medicine wheel in Wyoming, the largest in North America, and at around the turn of the previous century. The other familiar medicine wheel image is the iconic circle divided into 4 separately colored quadrants. The number 4 has great significance in most Aboriginal cultures. The black, white, red, and yellow medicine wheels that we frequently see in logos, on drums, in art, are all somewhat different. The one shown here is a compilation of some of the many attributes or powers that can be included in the medicine wheel. This one does not include the inner circle or the center, which is usually green and given the attributes of learning, self-balance, and beauty. Certain culturally significant animals being part of the natural world are also often included. The medicine wheel is interpreted uniquely to each culture. The order of colors is not the same in each culture, nor the attributes, and it would be wrong to make a sweeping generalization. The next time you see a medicine wheel, take a moment and think about its history and culture and significance.
Yeah, so I think I just like his explanation. I think is very succinct. He includes all the things that I would include anyways, but he explains them far better than I do. The other thing I would also point out as well, sometimes the color is different. I use blue on, I painted a medicine wheel on my rattle, and it's blue because generally Cree often use the blue instead of black. So you might see that as well. There's no right or wrong in terms of that, like he said. That's why I always say, look to the people that are closest to where your school is or the land that your school is on, who lived there originally before they were displaced, and go to those people or find out if you can, at least what colors they use in there so that you're having some continuity and that sort of thing. You're not always going to get teachings about those medicine wheels from those particular people. Part of the reason is that they do differ, like he said, greatly. But they're also provided by elders, and sometimes they're very protected teachings because they're meant for a particular community. So don't feel as though somebody is snubbing you if they don't want to share. There are things online, like I said, as long as you always teach the kids that those are generic teachings, then you're okay, right? As long as we're not attributing it to somebody in particular, that's the important part, right? To represent exactly what we're teaching. That's the important thing. And so that you can tell if you've got Indigenous families, in your school and this is being taught, you can say to them, this is what I'm doing. I'm using generic because I don't have access to the particular ones that are available. And so I'm just being careful that I'm not teaching anything that's wrong. So I'm just using generic ones, which is fine. I do have more links in here, and there is a video at Tribal Trade. I will show you. Tribal Trade does have, and I do have a slide in here with another video, but I do want to show you that they do have some resources as well. And they're Ojibwe because the ladies that run this company are in fact Anishinaabe Ojibwe. And they do have a few things in here if you do want to look at those, right? And they do a little more explanation for those who aren't sure. So I just thought I'd point that out for you. Those are available resources. And again, too, like, I'm not going to show this video, but this is a medicine wheel teaching. And I think too, if you're working with older kids, particularly, this is a really good video to do that. There's a couple of really good books out there as well. There's one about, and I didn't include this, I don't think, maybe I did at the end, but there's a hoop dancer one where the grandfather is teaching about the medicine wheel using this idea. But I don't have enough time today. Literally, the presentation is an hour and a half long if I do it in its entirety, but I have an hour to do this with you guys. So what I'm going to do for this one in particular is to focus on that wellness piece then, right? So that idea of balance is the key to the medicine wheel, and it's a traditional Indigenous way of life. So it's really important to understand that. And I think to give you a really good example of that is because every teacher knows about Maslow's hierarchy. It's something we all learn in school. Well, Maslow's hierarchy is very interesting because he actually got those teachings from the Blackfoot people, but he reversed them. So if you think of Maslow's hierarchy, but turn it upside down. So take that pyramid and turn it upside down. And if you look at self-actualization and you put that at the very bottom, it's really what you need to attain as a human being in Indigenous culture before you can go out and help. So basically, it's different. It's to be self-actualized as a human being and balanced is on the bottom. And then you look to your family to help your family. And then you look to your community. And then you look to the greater world. So there's really 4 components. Again, that number 4, looking at yourself. And within those things at the very bottom for that individual to be able to be healthy, to go help their family, then their community, and then the outside world, is to have these 4 things in balance. And that's physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and emotional health. And so when we look at kids in school as well, we haven't really focused on this too much yet in our Western world. So Mac has a comment in the chat. So it's moving from individualism to collectivism rather than collectivism. So yeah, again, Mac, it is in a way, and again, it's not entirely that way. So you're still looking at it through a Western lens when you say that. I don't mean to insult you when I say that, because it's just to change your thinking. I always get this in my Cree class. Our elder always says, you need to leave that Western way of thinking behind when you think about this. So really, it's about everyone in that community as well should be also balanced using the medicine wheel so that I can help you to thrive, to be a healthy person. So it's collectivism in that sense, but it's also individualism because I'm on my own journey in life, and my own journey may differ from what you want me to do. So that way it differs from collectivism because I may have different needs and wants, and creator may have a different path for me than you do, even in my family. And that's where I need to go. So that's where kind of that difference is, because everything has that spiritual component. So I hope that helps you to understand a little bit better. Okay, yeah. Perfect. Okay, so you get that, right? Yeah, so it's that idea of balance. It's the idea of we're all meant to be here to help each other for sure, but I am responsible for myself. Well, we're all responsible to help each other in that sense on our journey and whatever that may be. I do want to show one example. This is a Winnipeg teacher, and I use this a lot as an example because I love what she did here. She's a Métis teacher in Winnipeg. And what she did was she used classroom rules. And of course, this is middle elementary, and it could be used at any grade level. I think as teachers we're able to take these things, of course, and kind of put them towards our grade level, whatever we're working with, because I think I could even use this in Calm, right? And teaching in grade 11, just, I'm not gonna, there's a short video at the top you could watch if you want, but I'm just gonna show you what she did. So this is Sarah Martin's, and she had a grade 4 or 5 class at Lexington School in Winnipeg. And I think actually my cousin Ashley may have taught there. I think so. She's also a teacher. Anyway, so you can see what the kids did was they brainstormed together the classroom rules. And I'll show you here, right here is where she did it. And so what she helped the kids do, they brainstormed, and she helped them to organize, explaining under mind, heart, spirit, and body. So terms that these kids could understand in the 4 pieces of that balancing act, and got them to organize how they wanted their classroom rules to look. Then, as you can see in the next one, the kids took the medicine wheel and they collectively worked together. They each got to put a piece of it on their section of the rules that they came up with to understand where it belonged and how, if we were to work together and balance these things, how our classrooms would be a good place to be and how it would be healthy and help each other. So, and what was a really cool thing, as you can see their finished product, was at one point during the school year, a little boy came into class and he was Indigenous. And of course, in Winnipeg, there's lots of Indigenous students. And he walked in and immediately pointed, he said, oh, there's the medicine wheel. And he felt right at home right away as soon as he saw that. So, which was really cool because for so many of us, I know for myself, even growing up in Winnipeg, as an AT person, I never felt like there was anything represented for my people at all in our schools at all. Like, I don't know, I'm a lot older. There is stuff now for sure, which is great, but it's been like the last 15 years or so that that's happened, right? So that's just an example of one way that you could do that. So I guess what I'm going to ask you guys is kind of wellness activities currently do you use in your classroom right now? Because we're going to look at the 4 different areas of the medicine wheel and examine, how could we fit these in as wellness for the kids and get them to understand the medicine wheel. So if there's any wellness type things that you do right now that might cover any of those 4 areas, you could pop it in the chat if you want. Guided meditation, self-regulation. Oh, perfect. Yeah, awesome. I did that with my Calm class because I was in special education school, a private one here in Calgary, and mostly boys, and they were not regulated, especially with the whole Calm class at the very last class of the day, too, twice a week. Holy moly. So we did a lot of that. Say good morning to the plants and animals in kindergarten. Oh, that's cute. I like that. The plants must grow really well in your classroom. Then problem solving strategies and outside forest time. Oh, nice. Thanking the earth. Awesome. It's nice if you have a forest close to your school. That's always good. Yeah, so you guys can I'll keep an eye on, but yeah, just some different ideas, right? So when we look at and of course, like I said, because this is generic and we don't necessarily want to get into specific things, and because you're not going to be teaching spiritualism in your classrooms, right? I mean, you can teach about the spirit in a different way. I'm going to talk about that. But in terms of Indigenous spiritualism, you're not going to be teaching that to the kids, which you shouldn't be anyways, right? Because I'm not an elder, I'm not a knowledge keeper, and they're the only ones that should be teaching about that anyway. So physical health, right? We're talking about that inner awareness between the mind and the body. So that's really when we're talking about that as in Indigenous people, we're talking about that. I can have, if my physical health isn't okay, then it throws all the other 3 things out, right? It throws off my mind, my spirit, and my emotional state, right? Anybody who's been sick knows you lay there crying at the time and sniffling nose and I hate life, right? You can't think and your head feels like it's full of whatever. And, so that's the idea. You can get that, right? But we talk about, what are the different things that are physical health? Well, obviously we know that, right? And so we look at that physical health, games, outdoor activities, good nutrition, obviously those things. Pandemic care, one good thing that came out of it is maybe people understand about washing their hands and avoiding touching their faces a little bit more, right? So that's a good side to it. But we can talk about managing stress, right? Because stress makes us sick. And so when we start to look at that, like that gentle movement, that stretching, sleep, connecting with nature. So those are definitely Indigenous, things that we look at, really is that awareness and being in the moment and really examining who you are and being right here. And it is something that happens to me. Like I was at a sweat lodge yesterday. We talk about that. You know, you leave everything else outside right now, and right now, this moment is the only place you are. When I go to my Cree class, the elders are very much like, whatever's going on outside, you just leave that alone. We're focusing on this right now. You have to learn to be in the moment, right? And that's a very indigenous concept, or at least amongst our people here, right? Is to really think about that. And so getting kids to really focus on that, because they also have so many stressors in their lives, right? So we have to think about that. I did want to show you just a couple of links on here to give you some ideas. There we go. So this one I really loved. So this is the Mewasan Friendship Center in Medicine Hat. And this is for K-3, but like I just said, it's got some ideas. So they've used some Indigenous games. And in the past, I've done sessions on Indigenous games. You can find Run and Scream and Make the Stick Jump easily, those games. And they've also included all the learning outcomes on here and different things you can look at. Like I said, I always think you can modify some of these things as well, but looking at using sharing circles activities and giving them some questions, looking at traditional games and the values in them. You know, just like like Mac was saying about, that taking them outside and doing that forest time and that sort of thing as well, right? So getting them to recognize the land and, really connecting with it. And it's just lots of different ideas in this one. And I know I did, when I was in Fort McMurray last June, I worked with a few classroom teachers at one of the school and took their kids outside. And I'm sorry if I have told you guys about this before, if you've seen my stuff. But it was an interesting experience, because really getting those kids outside and just sitting on the ground and grounding them, like we talk about that term grounding, right? And that really is, a friend of mine even said that one day, because we were all very stressed just before Truth and Reconciliation Day. We were all working together and we were peeling teepee poles after carrying them out of the forest in Bragg Creek, and had helped with this. And then like we were all peeling them to get them ready. And everybody was so stressed about so many things in their lives. I think that day just kind of brings up a lot of emotional stuff anyway. And my friend, I came over to her house and she was sitting on the ground, and she goes, "You guys are so stressed out. You need to come and sit. You need to just come and sit." And I thought about it and I was like, that's what I did with the kids. And it really did help, right? So just that idea of really connecting with nature and just being outside, even, it just takes as much as that, going on sitting on the ground. So I just thought this was a really good one, because it's a health and PE menu, but it's kind of like a choice board, right? So if you were able to get the kids in your class to really learn a lot of these different activities, you could in fact get them to choose from them. If you don't want to do that, obviously, because there's some there that maybe are not age appropriate, there's just tons of explanations on here, which I love, right? And there's just some background information to give you some idea. And I always tell everybody, don't use a talking stick unless you've been gifted it or you've been taught how to make it by somebody who's Indigenous, because otherwise it's appropriation. And if you want, we can talk about that later. But yeah, and it does link to principles of learning for First Nations people as well. And anyways, there's just a lot of resources in here, which are just really great. So I just thought I'd give you guys that as well. And it does have activities for so many different ages. And then I like this one too, helping young people to achieve their goals. So one thing we can talk to kids too about is their goals. And even if they're young, what is it that you like to do and what do you think you could do? And so really talking about that and working on that, that what they call it, the frontopolar cortex, right? And really developing it, because a lot of what we talk about as Indigenous people, like I said, that journey and that spiritual journey, but it also has a purpose. So that purpose is to serve whatever purpose creator set out for me, but to help, like I said, now I'm going to help my family and I can help my community, and then I can help the greater world, right? So those are those things we're looking at. And so sometimes when we're talking about, even that physical stuff, what are some of our goals? What do we like to do? And then they do have some other resources as well down here, but I like this one. Move like a mellow monkey for 10 minutes. So so just some mellow things, right? It doesn't have to be super heavy duty workout stuff all the time, right? Because sometimes we do need that gentle workout. That's why people do like yoga. I like yoga as well. I don't practice it from that spiritual perspective, because I do, like I said, practice pre-spirituality, but I include it because it's just really great for movement and that gentleness, right? When we don't want heavy work that we're doing, especially if we're not feeling well. Next, we look at mental health, right? And so this is I think an aspect that education is getting better at, but I know growing up, because I'm a lot older, it was not really something that was touched on in school at all. And teachers shouldn't have to be therapists, right? But we can look at making sure that, we're checking on people's mental health. And if they're not doing well, the kids or other colleagues, that, we can try to help them the best that we can with the resources that are available. But here's just some great things for the kids, right? Because mental health, if we want to encourage creativity and knowledge really is one of the ways that we can deflect those issues in mental health. And that's one thing we do as Indigenous people, right? Like, you think about it, what do people do, right? I know people, I had somebody say that to me before when I was at a college here in Calgary. Oh, Indigenous people, you're so artistic. And I said, well, I don't think we're more artistic than any other people. It's just that it's encouraged, right? Why is it encouraged? Because if I'm feeling not great about myself, if I create something, if I make something, and I'm not saying to do it when you're in a bad mood, because we also believe in good medicine and bad medicine. And bad medicine is, if I'm in a really bad mood, I'm going to put that energy into that thing I create, whether it's mucklux or a painting or whatever. But if I approach it in, I'm going to do this so that I'm going to release this stuff. So usually we'll smudge before we do something, and it'll be like, I'm going to release all this stuff, and now I'm going to put my positive energy into it, right? So when I'm being positive and I put something into creativity, and I'm learning something new, like I learned how to make drums, and now I'm able to help other people, and so I'm passing on that. I go about it always with that good medicine idea. So I'm going to approach it in a good way. And so when I do that, think about it. As soon as like, if you watch a comedy show or you do something fun, it changes your mood, right? Not that it's going to get rid of depression entirely, but it will help you to feel better. And so these are some of the things that we can do with kids, right? So encourage them to read books that they like, doing those breathing exercises and meditations you guys were mentioning, right? Teaching about study and organizational skills, even, because that helps to make sure that you're not faltering and falling behind, and you're not going to feel frazzled. Learning new information is always great. I know I love it when I learn new information. I know all people do, right? Using sharing circles so that we feel safe and secure. Like I said, those setting goals, of course, all these things overlap, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, and the emotional, right? Doing personal affirmations. And I know it can seem silly, but also one thing we also say is whatever I say and speak out of my mouth, and this is not unique to Indigenous culture. I know this because I went to church for many years, but whatever we say becomes truth because we tell ourselves that, right? Just so I'm not supposed to say anything bad about somebody else because I'm putting that on that person. So now I'm putting bad medicine out there, or same thing about myself. If I tell myself that, then that's what I'm going to become. So I try to say those positive things, not in a silly way, but in just like, if let's an example, if I'm around my friends and I say, oh, I'm so stupid, which I don't say, but if I was to say that, or that was really dumb of me to do, which that might be something I might say, they'll say, hey, what'd you say? And I'll like, oh no, yeah, no, I'm gonna, and our term is, I'll do better next time. Instead of saying I did something wrong, I say I'll do better next time, right? And it's a positive thing to say. We can also talk about identifying communication style and skills, because that also helps us to know that, we do things differently than each other. We can look specifically at medicine wheel wellness, right? So this is a level grade 4 to 6, but like, again, I always say you can always take things and work on them and change them. But just it's giving that, emotional well-being competencies there, and talking about, and there's some reflections in there as well, talking about the domain of your health and what you're looking at. So you can use the medicine wheel for domains of health, for the 4, and talking about, how do we balance those out? And the kids can do that. Lots of stuff you can do with paper plates for sure, right? To do 4 directions. And this one. This I love, the raisin meditation. If you've never done this, and I know with the little kids it would be funny because I know you need a lot of raisins because they're probably going to eat the first few ones. But if you have, and older kids might do it too, depending on who you have in your class. But it's that idea of taking a raisin, and you do it, it's 5 minutes daily for at least a week, and it just creates that mindfulness practice of thinking about something, right? So you hold it, and then you see it, you touch it, you smell it, you're placing, you're tasting it, you're swallowing, you're following. So you're just going through all the steps and just trying to get the kids to think about the steps in everything that they do, whether it's eating, whether it's walking, whether it's talking, whatever it might be, to really think before they do something super important, right? because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're taught. We're supposed to think before we do something. You know, it's often said to us, you know, if we do something that we're not supposed to, like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So listening first, think before you speak, right? So really that mindfulness is really stopping. I know I talk a lot in these, but generally if you meet me in person, if you ask me a question, I'm probably going to pause for quite a long time. And often people, because they're not comfortable with that space, they'll start talking and I'll be, you know, I'll have to say to you, I wasn't ready to answer you. Just give me a moment, right? Because I'm thinking, because I want to make sure I'm thinking through what I'm going to say to you first. It's really important to do that. The spiritual health, and you know, again, like, you're not going to be teaching specific Indigenous spirituality, and it's not the purview of the school to do that. You know, if you do have elders come in and you want them to do some of that, you know, feel free if the parents are okay with that. But really, again, it's talking about that positive mindset, like I said, and then strengthening your spirit is really, you know, I'll just give you an example on here with this link, and just talking about spirituality in the medicine wheel. It just gives you the idea, a little bit of background, talking about that spiritual balance, right? And the things that we do, right? Like for most of us who do practice, like we smudge in the morning before we do anything else, and we pray to the 4 directions, pray to Creator, pray for the people around us, all the different things that might happen during the day. There is, you know, maybe we don't call it meditation, we call it more of a mindfulness practice, but really thinking about everything you're doing during the day. Like I have on my wall, I've got, actually it's a Oglala Lakota holy man prayer, and it just says every step you take should be a prayer, and if every step you take is a prayer, then you will always be walking in a sacred manner. And so I'm not saying I'm always good at doing that and following it properly, but that's my goal, and that's all of our goals, right? Is to be doing that. It's really being mindful about what I say, what I do, how I behave. And again, like I said, the smudging's on there. I'm being a part of nature and understanding that, practicing gratitude. We always, like in a sweat lodge, our 3rd round is, sorry, the last round is, the 4th round is thankfulness, right? So practicing gratitude, what are you thankful for? So everybody says what they're thankful for before you leave, as the prayers are already out there. And so now you're saying what you're thankful for. And then community, right? Because we all are a part of community. It's a really important, at the end of the day, why are we doing this? I need to be a healthy person so I can help everyone else as well, right? Because I can't do that unless I'm healthy first. But other ways, right? We can learn about our cultures and everybody's cultures, the kids, right? Being in nature, like I said, speaking to elders and knowledge keepers, and all cultures have people that are older and they carry the knowledge of their culture. It's not just ours. Always trying to do your best, like I said, right? So instead of saying, oh, I did that wrong, be like, do better next time, right? Do better. Respect others in all things. So always trying to do that. It's really important. And then I've got some more activities. I don't know if I'll have time to get through all of them, but I'll pick a few for you guys. Especially I want to give you some of the older ones as well. So for teens. So this side is just talking about mindfulness for teens, because that can be the hardest one, right? For that older age group. I think they need it so much too. So it's hard. But just there's some videos on here. There's some meditations. That's something called the Mindful Teen as well. And so there's some information on there for you. Also, the Foundry BC has some mindfulness practices as well. They've got a self-care toolkit you can create, and just talking about some more of the basics and, you know, how to take action a lot of the time, how to take that out into the community again. And then I've got 5 mindfulness activities on here for kids, exercises. There's a video you can look at. I'm not going to play the video for you, but it's called Zen Den. Just there's some, anyway, if you watch it, there's some cute things on there for kids, but just getting them involved. And then there's some mindful practices on here as well. Right, how to practice gratitude. We know that from studies in psychology that those who practice gratitude on a daily basis, particularly, are happier people, right? Because we start looking at the good things in our lives and not just the things that are going wrong. So, and that's something, especially I think getting kids to practice on a daily basis is super important. And then, you know, when teens get into that time when their brains are changing and they can get very depressed about different things, especially with hormonal issues, really just giving them some of those tips on how to do that, right? I think that's important. And then, of course, I've got a link to their yoga sequence. You can look at for kids' health. But I just want to get through the emotional health as well. So again, these overlap, right? So spiritual, emotional, they overlap a lot, right? But it's gaining that understanding of your emotions and thoughts, and knowing that there's no bad emotion, there's no bad thoughts. That idea that there's no I want to say there's tricksters, and there's definitely evil spirits out there that indigenous people believe in, but there isn't like an idea of a devil or something like that, like a one creature that you can blame everything on. There's good and bad, and there's good and bad in everybody, including ourselves. And it's really that balancing again in the medicine wheel of those things. So I can be anxious, I can be angry, I can be fearful, but I can also be loving, happy, odd about things, sad, I can be surprised. It's how I balance those things and how I bring myself back to center. How do I bring myself from those big emotions back to the center, to be calmer and ready to deal with things in my life, is really the goal, right? So some of these things that we can do, like you probably do them already. I know I've done them with kids, but that journaling, laughing, is my favorite thing to do. Making that gratefulness daily list, holding space for emotions, like I said, all are acceptable. Listening to or creating music, that's one thing we all do. We drum, right? We drum because that heartbeat of Mother Earth, it's a meditative thing, right? And it really just helps you to bring you back to center. It's part of your heartbeat as well. And that singing the songs that are repetitive and just kind of get you into that meditative state as well, is one of the reasons we do that. Looking at self-care activities, spending times with loved ones, it's really important, right? We spend times with our friends and the people that we love. I do have, this is also on YouTube, but I'm not going to have time to go through this, but I encourage you to go flip your lid. It's a really great one talking about the amygdala and how the amygdala reacts, and using hand movements. And you can use this with any age group of kids as well. Same thing. It's a really great exercise, and it's taking forever to load anyway, so I'm not going to do that. And then I do have some preschool ones on here as well, because I didn't want to leave the little ones out. So I do have some preschool activities on here. The little otter. Just talking about this regulating emotions. And I know I've worked in a PUF and a mild moderate program, and I've seen some of those regulation kind of activities and the programs that they do, and they're very westernized, I have to say. Like, I was never super comfortable with all of them, but those are the ones that are out there that people are using. If you're not looking at indigenous ways of knowing, then you may, that's what you're going to go to. You don't know these things. But anyways, there's some really neat ones for preschoolers, making comfort objects together, the calm down bottle. I know some people have probably done that even with their own kids at home. I've seen that a lot. And then I've got a whole lot of other resources. Again, like, I don't have time to go through every single thing here, but just there's links here for you guys when you get this. I'm going to show you this one because it is for a bit older ones as well. Safe Water. Interesting there, that it's a Safe Water website that has some really cool medicine wheel teachings on it, actually, some activities you can do. And so this one I really liked, because it's an inquiry lesson as well, and it includes a bunch of different things. It's got that health element, it's got Indigenous studies and social studies as well. So, and they do say, of course, on here, if you can bring an elder in, that'd be great. If not, they do have a TED Talk, and they use the one by Dallas Arcan, which is an amazing TED Talk. I have used it plenty of times in my presentations. I have Dallas on Facebook. I've met his son, Dallas Arcan Jr. I know him, and they're just really great guys, and just to teach some of these things anyways. But if you get to watch that video, if you've never done it, please do. He does explain a lot of things really well, and like I said, I've used it myself. And on this site too, they do have a grading rubric and all kinds of really cool activities on here too, so that's why I've included it. There's some really good stuff on there. And oh, this one before we're done, and then I'll have a few minutes at the end if you guys have any questions or comments. I like to include this when I do medicine wheel teachings, because it's got a PDF that has a whole bunch of stuff that's already done and can be printed out or modified, however you'd like to do that. It's just got lots of stuff on here, and it goes over the 4 different directions. So obviously it's more than just the health part, right? It's got all the different things on here. And that trickster part is what I was just talking to you guys about. Instead of there being like an evil entity, there's different tricksters, and this is what they're named, right? Like Wesachuk is for Cree. So when we do pray and we talk about, like that, we talk about any evil spirits or tricksters that are out there, kind of thing, right? Yeah, anyways, there's lots of stuff on here, and then they've got examples of things that kids have already done with the teachers, and just gives you lots of different ideas. And they do have, I think, yeah, on here they've got just some other things that you can print out too, but just loads of stuff in this PDF. I just love it because it's got so much stuff that you can look at and use, and so it seems to go on and on and on and on and on. But yeah, there you go. Anyways, I'll just leave it at that, and I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to stop recording, you guys.